Last time on What If a Cell Jr. Survived. After taking a devastating loss against the demon known as Majin Buu, both Android 17 and Mito ventured into the Room of Spirit and Time in order to gain the necessary strength to face off against the Majin once again. But even with these massive jumps of power, victory would be ripped right out of their hands the moment Buu tanks were born. With the birth of this new Majin came the death of 17 and Mito would soon follow suit. But before Buu tanks could land a final attack, Gohan saved the android. And from there the two rivals would fight side by side to take down a common enemy. Now with Buu dead and Mito's revenge for Gohan set aside, Mito's story continues now. After the death of Majin Buu, Gohan sits on an empty battlefield, relieved to still be alive. He lets out a sigh of relief and begins to laugh, thinking to himself that he was right about his rival. However, this thought would be pushed aside as he realized that Piccolo, Goten, and Trunks were still dead. Well, guess I got some work to do, Gohan says, struggling to his feet. And with his remaining strength, the Saiyan takes off for Capsule Corp. In Otherworld, Goku smiles from ear to ear after watching his son defeat Buu. Well now, I certainly didn't expect those two to work together after everything you've told me, Old Kai says. Yeah, same here. Looks like Gohan sparing Cell's kid worked out in the long run, Goku says as he remembers sparing Piccolo all those years ago, finding some similarities to his son's situation. So what now? Kabito Kai asks Goku and the Saiyan's stomach begins to grumble. Do you guys have anything to eat? I'm starving, Goku says chuckling. Back on Earth, the sky grew dark as Shenron descended from the clouds. He asked Gohan for his first wish, and with careful wording, Gohan would bring back everyone who was killed within the last couple days, excluding Babidi, Babidi's men, and Majin Buu. Once this was granted, Shenron's voice boomed through the air as he asked the young Saiyan for his final wish. And after a moment of silence, Gohan would ask Shenron if he could bring back his father. Although he knew that Goku had declined the offer 7 years ago, after seeing him again after so long, his heart yearned to spend more time with him, and after a short silence, Shenron's voice tore through the air again. The one known as Son Goku has declined, and Gohan hangs his head in disappointment. Can I at least say goodbye? Gohan asks, and Shenron falls silent for but a moment before his eyes glow a bright red. Goku's hand lands on his son's shoulder, and Gohan's eyes meet with his father's. He gives Goku a tight hug, telling him that he's going to miss him. Goku smiles and embraces his son. You know, I remember when you were just a boy, how you'd cry about almost everything. Now look at you, all grown up and you're stronger than anyone I know. But even after all these years, one thing still hasn't changed about you, Goku says, and Gohan would give his father a confused look. You have a good heart, always have. It's the reason you fight, to protect. There was a time where I couldn't see that, but I do now. You've come a long way, Gohan. I'm proud of you. And Gohan begins to tear up as his father starts to slowly fade. Dad, you don't have to go, Gohan says, and Goku falls silent as he rests his hand on his son's shoulder one last time. As much as I like to, you know I can't. Me being here is more trouble than it's worth, so it's up to you to protect this place. Look after Chi-Chi and Goten for me, and most importantly, take care of yourself. Goodbye, Gohan. Goku says as he fades from the world of the living, and Gohan raised his head to the sky as his father vanishes. Goodbye, Dad. I'll try my best, Gohan says. On Monster Island, Mito and his brothers would watch in awe as the once dead 17 dug himself out of his freshly made grave. 17? Mito says as he tries to understand what was going on. I watched you die in my arms. How? How are you alive? Mito asks. 17 would also be confused about how he was here, but he'd suddenly remember a conversation he had with his sister a few years ago after the events of the Cell games, where 18 tells him about how the Z-Fighters removed their bombs through the use of a Wish Dragon. At the time he thought that she was pulling his leg, but he'd now realized that she was telling the truth. The android locks eyes with his friend, and he'd tell him what he knows about Shenron. Someone must have wished me back, 17 says. What? How is something like that even possible? Mito asks, struggling to process the information. But his thoughts would be interrupted by the arrival of his late brother. The young android cried out for Mito as he rushed onto Monster Island and he collided straight into him. Mito embraced him back, but he'd still be shocked by the existence of the Wish Dragon. All this time, there was a way to cheat death. Something powerful enough to bring people back into the world of the living, and for a moment the thought of wishing back his father runs through Mito's mind. Mito, are you okay? 17 asks, breaking the android out of his trance. Yeah, I'm fine, Mito says as he stared blankly at 17 and his brother. After a moment of silence, 17 would tell the android that he knows that this is all a bit jarring, but they should just be happy that Buu's dead and that they live to see another day, regardless of how. Yeah, you're right, Mito says as he puts his thoughts aside for the time being and he'd celebrate the revival of his brother and friend. As the day came to an end, the android sat and watched as the sun began to set. So how'd you manage to defeat Buu anyways? I wasn't too sure you'd survive those 10 minutes against that monster, 17 says. And Mito would tell the android about how he teamed up with Gohan and the intense battle that followed. Now I've heard everything. Next thing you're gonna tell me you guys are the best of friends, 17 says laughing. Very funny. I only teamed up with the bastard to avenge you, Mito says a little annoyed. And 17 chuckles at his response and he'd ask the android what happened next. The kid, did you kill him? The island falls silent as Mito recalls what happened a few hours earlier. I didn't. Revenge. It's an empty feeling. I see that now, Mito says calmly, and 17 smiles, telling Mito that he's proud of him. Yeah, well, it's done. Anyways, don't you have a family to get back to? Mito says to 17, and the android smiles, saying his goodbyes as he departed for the night, leaving Mito to his thoughts. Now with peace restored, the next 4 years would go by in a blink of an eye. Over that time, Mito would achieve 2 things. The first being power. Within those 4 years, Mito would train alongside 17 and his brothers, and together they'd increase their strength and refine their techniques so that when the next challenge arose, they'd be ready. And by the end of the time skip, Mito's strength would be monstrous, with 17 not too far behind. The second thing that he'd achieve over these 4 years would be peace. Through talks with 17 and the self-reflection that he'd do in his time alone, Mito would no longer find himself in a constant state of anger as he did a few years prior. With these 2 achievements in hand, the android would enter the Battle of God saga far stronger than ever, both physically and mentally. On the night before Bulma's birthday, 17 and Mito would find themselves fending off a large platoon of poachers trying to make their way onto the island. These guys never learn, do they? Mito says he easily evaded and catches the barrage of bullets. Yeah, it seems like it. 17 says he knocks out the poachers who were distracted by Mito. Is that the last of them? 17 axes as he begins to pile up the unconscious poachers, and Mito would look around sensing for any malicious key. Seems like it, Mito says. He then began to help 17, and as they put the last of the poachers on the boat that they came in, 17 would ask Mito how he feels about parties. I don't really care for them. Why? Mito asks, and 17 would tell him about an upcoming party that his sister had invited him to, where it would be, who would be there, and what the special occasion was. So how about it? 17 asks as he watched the boat full of poachers sail into the open ocean. I'd rather not spend my time mingling with former enemies, Mito says as he begins to head to camp. Well, at least give it some thought. One of them must have revived your brother and I after all, so it wouldn't hurt for you to try to get along with them, 17 says as the 2 walk through the forest. Fine, I'll think about it, Mito answers, and the 2 head back to camp. On the day of Bulma's birthday, Mito and 17 arrive a few seconds before the boat takes off. As they boarded, everyone would greet 17 with open arms. However, their demeanors would change the moment they laid eyes on Mito. Piccolo, Tien, Krillin, and Yamcha all stepped forward preparing themselves for a fight, and Bulma would demand to know why the hell the monster that went on a rampage a few years ago is on her ship. 17 would let out an audible sigh. He's changed. Trust me, 17 says, trying to calm everyone down. Like hell he has, Tien yells out. However, before anyone could attack, Gohan would step forward telling everyone that 17's right, reminding them all about how the android helped against Boo and what happened after. Not only that, his ki. It's different, it's calmer, Gohan says, and the Z fighters stop in their tracks. Fine, but if he steps out of line even once, we eliminate him, Piccolo says, staring the android down, and the ship falls silent. Oh hey Mito, Goten and Trunks say as they come to see what all the commotion was about. Suddenly one of Mito's brother would seemingly come out of nowhere and approach the young Saiyans. Saito, how many times do I have to tell you, you can't keep following me around, especially without my permission. Remember what happened last time? Mito says, and Saito would apologize, telling him that staying on the island is boring. The young android would then plead to stay, and after giving it some thought, Mito agrees. Alright, just stay out of trouble, Mito says, patting his brother on the head. Saito celebrates and introduces himself to Goten and Trunks, asking them if they want to play, and the 3 would run off to cause havoc. And when Mito turned his attention back to the Z fighters, they'd all watch in awe at Mito's kind gesture. What the hell are you all staring at? Mito says as he pushed past Piccolo and makes his way up to the top balcony of the ship in order to keep to himself. As the ship took off and the party began, Mito would spend his time bored out of his mind whilst watching over the festivities, as well as his younger brother goofing off with Goten and Trunks. However, as the party continued, as he did this, something interesting would catch his eye. That being Vegeta groveling before none other than the god of destruction Beerus and his attendant Whis. Interesting, Mito thinks to himself, and from that point on, the android would keep an eye on both of the deities. Whilst doing this, he noticed that for whatever reason, Vegeta was trying to do his utmost to keep one of the strange men happy, even going as far as dancing, singing, and cooking. However, even after seeing all of this unfold, Mito continued to watch from afar. That is until he noticed Beerus approaching his brother. You there, the one with the delicacy you all call pudding. Come here, Beerus says, addressing Saito. The young android does as he's told, and Beerus asks him if he can have one. but Saito would tell him no. I won these fair and square, they're mine. Saito says he eats another pudding cup. Vegeta rushed over to the android, yelling at him to hand one over. Saito would continue to refuse, and Vegeta would grab the young android by the wrist in an attempt to grab a pudding cup. Get your hand off of my brother. Mito says he appears before the prince. Vegeta stares daggers at the android and tells him that all he needs is one pudding cup. That's all. Mito grabs Vegeta by the wrist and begins to crush it. I said let go, Mito says, and not wanting to cause a bigger commotion, Vegeta does. Saito, where are your manners? Give the man a pudding cup, Mito says to his brother, and the young android would do so. Beerus thanks Saito and he'd greedily eat the pudding. Afterward, he'd thank Mito for his help and he'd call out for Whis. Now then, I think it's about time I took my leave. It seems as if the legend was just a legend after all. Beerus says he laid his hand on Whis' shoulder and Vegeta lets out a sigh of relief. So who are you exactly? Mito asks, and Vegeta would shoot the android a look that could kill, as sweat began to run down his brow. You're the one who's been watching us, right? Beerus asks, looking at the android. Answer the question, Mito says firmly. Beerus chuckles at Mito's forwardness, but before the god could answer, Vegeta would interrupt, telling the android that he and Beerus are old friends, and that Beerus is a very important man that doesn't have time to answer such stupid questions. Cut the crap. Ever since this guy arrived, you've been making a fool out of yourself. More than usual. And not only that, I can't even sense the slightest bit of ki from him. Why is that? Mito asks. Beerus smiles and tells the android that he's very observant. I am Beerus, the god of destruction. And you are? Beerus asks. Mito's eyes widen and he begins to chuckle. A god of destruction? You expect me to believe that? What a ridiculous title. Who are you really? Mito asks, and Beerus would smile. Seeing as I haven't had any excitement all day, how about we play a little game? If you could land a single hit on me within the next minute, I'll ignore that comment. But if you don't, I'll show you what a god is capable of. Beerus says he begins to stretch. Now then, give me your best shots. Mito cracks a smile and his ki explodes as he rushes in. The warrior crashed into the god, trying his absolute best to land a single hit, but Beerus would effortlessly dodge and counter the android's attack. The entire boat begins to shake as Mito's power rises even higher. What the hell is going on? Bulma yells out as she tries to keep her balance. Seems as if your friend has a knack of causing problems, Piccolo says to 17 as he heads over to where Mito is battling against Beerus. Vegeta, what happened? Gohan asks. 50 seconds. Beerus says he extends his hand to Mito's forehead and plucks him away. The android catches himself and he'd rush back in, but no matter how hard he tried, nothing changed. The longer that this continued, the more frustrated Mito became, and the android's ki would rise and he'd go right into his super perfect form, causing the entire boat to tremble even more. 30 seconds. Beerus says as he rushes the android and grabs him by the face, throwing him far out into the open ocean. The god would give chase and Mito continued in his attempt to land a single hit. Although his strength increased massively due to his super perfect form, it was nothing compared to the power that Beerus held. It just became more evident to the android with each missed, blocked, and countered attack. 10 seconds. Beerus says he evades Mito's punches and lands an attack that causes the android to puke up blood. 5, 4, 3, Beerus says, and Mito lets out a loud yell as he rushes in, putting all his strength into his next attack. 0, Beerus says, and he lightly tapped Mito's chest. The android would suddenly feel a tremendous amount of pressure and pain jolt throughout his body, and he'd get sent crashing into the island below him. When the dust settles, Mito was severely injured, and he'd struggle to drag himself out of the crater created by his impact. Beerus lands in front of the android, and Mito tries to throw another punch, but it gets caught by the god. If I'm being honest, I didn't think you'd survive, Beerus says with a smile, and he'd crush Mito's hands. What a disappointing day. No good fights, disrespectful mortals, and most importantly, no Super Saiyan God. It seems as if I even wasted my time getting out of bed today, Beerus says as he turns his back to the android. Super Saiyan God? Mito asks out of curiosity. The deity would let out a sigh, and he'd let the android know about the dream he had and how it seems it was just that, a dream. Hearing this piques the android's interest, and he'd see an opportunity to gain power. You know, there might be a way for you to get what you want, Mito says, remembering what 17 told him about Shenron 4 years ago. Beerus turns and stares at the android. But first we make a deal. I get you your Super Saiyan God, and you in turn show me how you got that power of yours, Mito says, and Beerus lets out a chuckle. Bold for you to try and bargain with me. But unfortunately for you, I'm not taking anyone under my wing. So how about this? Either you get me the Super Saiyan God, or else I destroy this entire planet, Beerus says, and Mito grits his teeth. But before he could say anything, 17 rushed onto the battlefield and he threw a punch at Beerus. The deity dodges and catches his attack. I didn't even sense you coming. Interesting. Beerus says as he looked the android up and down. 17 goes for another attack and Beerus taps the android's head, sending him flying. 17, stop. It's pointless. He's too strong. Mito says, clenching his fists. You sure? I heard this bastard was trying to kill you. 17 says, dusting himself off. And Beerus would laugh, telling the android how Mito disrespected him first. So, what will it be? The Earth or the Super Saiyan God? Beerus asks, staring at Mito. A few moments later, Shinra will be called upon, and with a simple request, the Wish Dragon informs our heroes on the history of the Super Saiyan God and how it's achieved. 6 pure-hearted Saiyans? We only have 4. Where are we supposed to find 2 more? Gohan says, and Vegeta will look at Mito. What about him? He has Saiyan cells, doesn't he? Vegeta says, you're right, but I doubt he has a pure heart. And even if he had one, we'd still be missing one. Piccolo says, and the prince's attention will be brought to Saito. Cells brats. Do you have any other brothers? Vegeta asks the young android, and Saito will tell him that he does. Can you bring one of them here? Vegeta asks. Saito looks at Mito, and the android tells him to go ahead. Saito heads back to Monster Island and brings back one of his brothers. Now with 2 substitutes and 4 pure-hearted Saiyans, they begin the ritual. As it starts, all the Saiyans' ki begin to glow a golden yellow. However, the Cell Jr.'s ki remained a dull blue. Something was wrong, and the young androids looked over to Mito. Concentrate on your Saiyan cells. They're abundant, so it should be easy, Mito says, and the 2 androids do as instructed and their ki erupts into a golden yellow aura. Now with the ritual ready, the question is who would be chosen to ascend into the realm of the gods? Well, it'd be none other than Son Gohan, seeing as he is the strongest Saiyan at the moment. This power, it's unbelievable, Gohan says as he looks at his hands. Beerus looks over to Mito and he gives the android a smile. He then turns his attention back to Gohan and a fierce battle would commence. As everyone tries to watch the fight unfold, 17 walks over to an injured Mito and hands the android a senzu bean. You know you could've got yourself killed, 17 says. Well, I didn't expect him to be that strong, Mito says as he eats the bean. You're lucky that this Super Saiyan God thing wasn't just a myth. Why'd you even help him in the first place? 17 asks, and Mito says nothing as he turns his attention to Gohan and Beerus tearing through the sky, going toe to toe with one another. The Saiyan throws a powerful punch that knocks the god back. Son Gohan, was it? Tell me, how does it feel to be a god? Beerus asks, and Gohan smiles, telling him that it feels amazing. I thought I already hit my limits a while back, but this... I don't think I'd ever reach these levels of power on my own, Gohan says, smiling ear to ear. Maybe, maybe not. Either way, your strength is formidable. Now then, let's continue, Beerus says, and the 2 warriors clash in a fierce back and forth ensues. They jolt through the skies, landing devastating blows against one another. Each strike was met with an even stronger counterattack, but even with the attacks escalating in intensity, the warriors took them head on, not bothering to block or dodge. However, Beerus wanted to see how far he could push the young Saiyan, and because of that he'd hold back less and less. And to his surprise, Gohan's power kept rising. His punches were getting stronger, his reactions were getting faster, and the young warrior wasted less and less energy on pointless attacks. Good, you're far stronger than I ever could have imagined, Beerus says. The god would then rocket into space and he'd begin to charge up a sphere of destruction. But let's see how far I can push you, Beerus says, laughing. Gohan begins to panic as he realizes that this sparring match suddenly turned into something far more dangerous. Stop, that's too much. You're going to destroy the planet, Gohan yells as Beerus continues to pour more and more ki into his attack. Not if you stop it. Come on, let's see what you got, Son Gohan. Beerus yells out and Gohan begins to charge up a god-infused special beam cannon. Beerus launches his attack, laughing as he did so, and as the sphere came crashing down towards the earth, the air grew thin as red-hot lightning crackled through the sky. Gohan's hair flickered between black and red as he poured every drop of divine ki into his 2 fingers. Gohan! It's now or never! Piccolo yells out at the top of his lungs, and Gohan's eyes flicker from red to black one last time. Special Beam Cannon! Gohan yells out and he points his fingers at the Sphere of Destruction. A wild and uncontrollable amount of ki juts out with destructive force, and the moment it makes contact with Beerus' attack, it pierces right through it, causing a massive explosion within the Earth's atmosphere. Gohan's attack would continue to race through the sky at blinding speeds and charge directly at Beerus. The god barely dodges the beam, and a huge smile crosses his face. This kid, Beerus says. Back on Earth, the young android hovered above the ocean, completely spent. I did it, Gohan says to himself. Indeed you did. I'm impressed, though I must say I'm a bit disappointed that there doesn't seem to be a drop of divine ki running through your body, Beerus says. Gohan looks at his hands. You're right. I guess I used it all up in that last attack, Gohan says. The young Saiyan would then hear the voices of his friends and family as they all rush over to celebrate his victory. Back on the boat, Vegeta, Mito, 17, and Whis watched from afar, and Whis would catch Mito's attention. Hey, you with the crazy hair, you're with Beerus, right? Tell me, how did he get so strong? That kind of power, it's unreal. Mito says, because I trained him. Although he could use some work, he's still impressive, is he not? Whis says, and the boat falls silent in the emergence of his news. So if he's a god of destruction, then what does that make you? Vegeta asks, and Whis would tell them that he's an angel and go out of his way to reveal the god hierarchy. And here I thought that Buu was a monster. How could a mortal possibly keep up with that kind of power? Our best chance is just a temporary power boost. Mito says frustrated, and Whis chuckles at the comment. Whis, I think it's time we head back. I need a nap. Beerus says, placing his hand on the back of the angel's shoulder. The god would then look over to the android and he'd ask him for his name. And Mito would tell him, well Mito, thank you for your cooperation, Beerus says, smiling from ear to ear. Yeah, whatever, Mito says, staring daggers at the deity. Oh, and Vegeta, keep that kid on his toes for me. He has a promising future, Beerus says, and he and Whis finally take off. Once the deities had departed, everyone went back to Bulma's boat and they'd finished celebrating. A few hours later, as the party came to an end, Mito stood atop the highest balcony of the ship as he did when he first boarded. While there, he'd hear someone coming up the ladder. Oh, I didn't know you were still up here. I'll just get out of your way, Gohan says, trying not to disturb the android in his brooding. It's fine. I actually wanted to talk to you, Mito says, and Gohan confusedly points to himself. Really? He says as he heads over to the balcony. How was it? Mito asks. Gohan stares at the android a little confused. The food? It was great. Why, did you want some? Gohan asks. What? No. How did it feel to have that much power? Being able to go toe to toe with a god? Mito asks. If I'm being honest, I don't really know how to explain it. All that power, it was overwhelming. Terrifying even. But in that same breath, it was exhilarating, Gohan says. The young Saiyan would then ask why he was asking. The strength that Beerus wields is ferocious, nothing like I've ever seen before, and I was helpless against him. I felt so weak, and I hated it. If Beerus' only goal was to destroy Earth, none of us would have been able to stop him. After Buu, I thought that either you or me were the strongest, but I was wrong. Something tells me that we're not even close. What'll happen when someone with just a fraction of Beerus' power decides they want to destroy this place? Mito says, get it, but why are you telling me this? Gohan asks, and Mito lets out a sigh. I'm going to be leaving soon. I know you don't owe me anything after everything I've done to you, but if you can, protect my brothers if 17 can't. Please, Mito asks. Gohan looks at Saito as he plays with both Goten and Trunks. Where are you going? Gohan asks, and Mito looks up into the sky. If Beerus won't show me how he got that power, I'll find my own way to match it, Mito says, and Gohan would realize the android planned on going into space. Fine. On one condition, you protect the people that I care about if there ever comes a time when I can't, and I'll promise you that your brothers will be safe, Gohan says, and Mito turns his attention to his rival. Deal, Mito says. And with that, this marks the end of this part. Thank you to everyone that watched this video. I hope you have a great day. Peace, peace. Deuce, deuce.